Sit right down and I'll show you where my dreams began.
I'm Michael Dugan, your culinary host, guiding you through the chef's journey. Join me at the chef's table, where you'll experience stories, secret sauces, signature dishes, and kitchen disasters. In part one, we take you into Jeffray's kitchen as he wraps bars and walks us through his life from hockey to chocolatier. We talk about how he met his wife, Naomi, and proposed in a gondola in Italy. Today on the show, I want to welcome Jeffray Gardner. He was a professional hockey referee turned chocolatier and confections creator. He now owns a chocolate shop in Southern California called Marsatta, and he is a chef and chocolatier. Chef Jeffray, welcome to the show.
Hello, Michael. How are you? Just wrapping some 100% bars that have to be done before we're actually going to be moving factories in the next couple weeks. So we've got our work cut out for us. So right now we're just busy packaging, a lot of chocolate.
So we are truly in the kitchen with Jeffray. This is live.
Yeah, actually.
Live with Jeffray.
We're in the packaging room, but yeah, we are here.
Cool.
Thank you for having me.
I am so excited to have you, Jeffray. We've been talking about this for a while, and I know how busy you've been, with the holidays and how busy it gets. And so I'm just really glad that we were able to make this happen.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's start out a little bit and let's drop back to your childhood. What was it like for you growing up, and how would you say you were connected to food at an early age?
I think I was connected to food in an early age through my mother. My mother's native from France, and at a young age, although born in Canada, I was, my mother born, of course, in France, I was really in tune with a lot of the French cuisine, and of course, living in France at a young age turned us on to the wonderful world of chocolate. And so at a very young age, I still recall, having the French bread, early morning with butter, fresh butter, and a piece of chocolate inside. So that was our pain au chocolat back then,
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And then, of course, when we moved back to Canada, sorry, we are in a live kitchen here. So
okay, we're live.
Background noise. It's our company running. Yeah. So, at a young age, we moved back to Canada, and I always recall I couldn't wait for the next package. We also always got parcels in the mail from Meme, which is my grandmother, my mom's mom, and there'd always be chocolate in there, whether it was marzipan, which was always my favorite, which is an almond paste for those that don't know it. Encased in chocolate, enrobed in chocolate, So those were always a favorite, and some of my fondest memories, absolutely.
As you were growing up, you obviously had a passion for chocolate and food, but tell us a little bit about what your first career was like.
Yeah, and so my father was Canadian and was in the Canadian military, but a very big hockey enthusiast. He grew up in what we call Winterpeg, but is, of course, Winnipeg in Manitoba, Canada. And so I would think that's where I got my hockey, my passion for hockey. And so I recall also at a young age playing hockey in France and Germany. And then, of course, when we did make our move to Canada, playing, of course, youth hockey in Canada. And then, at a young age, you think, like everyone, you think of a little bit of cash in your pocket, and I turned to officiating. So
Wow.
I was a referee, actually
Okay.
referee / linesman. So that was kind of my passion for many years. I progressed up the ranks from minor hockey to junior hockey to professional hockey. So I worked a lot of leagues, including the National Hockey League, the old International Hockey League, and the leagues have changed throughout the years now. But I worked the World Championships, and this is really dating myself because back then, Timo Solani, who those that know hockey, I believe, he retired with Anaheim, the Anaheim Ducks. He was actually just a young whippersnapper playing for Team Finland, and there was Eric Lindros for Canada and a handful of players from, the United States that progressed and made their careers in the National Hockey League and continued on. So I worked many years in pro hockey and ended up bouncing between Victoria, Calgary, Ontario, and these are all provinces in Canada. Yeah, and including
Canada.
Manitoba, Winnipeg, particularly. And Winnipeg, I ended up setting roots there and ended up purchasing a house there. And I traveled out of Winnipeg. I worked a lot of hockey between Canada and the United States. And at the time, I met a girl whose mother knew chocolate, and we got into chocolate. So we ended up having a kiosk at a shopping mall. And I recall selling, we sold out at Valentine's Day. And of course, any type of success a human being has, you think you're the next best thing, right? And so,
Sure.
yeah. And so we ended up opening a store. So we opened up a store in Winnipeg. Make a long story short, we ended up, manufacturing out of that location. And I ended up getting our chocolate actually in Walmart. So that was a really big feather in our hats. And we were in 210 or 220 Walmart stores across Canada. And the next challenge was getting it into the U.S. I ended up, there was a lot of pressure, a lot of stress, and we were trying to get investors in. And I ended up, more for personal reasons, I ended up leaving the company. And I actually just moved down to the U.S. I knew the U.S. Back in actually 1984, and I failed to kind of mention my other passion. My other passion back then was cycling. Yeah, so I used to race across the Pacific Northwest in Oregon, Portland, Seattle, Victoria, Vancouver. Did a lot of racing with my brother and down in LA actually as well. And this was just before the Olympics, the U.S. Olympics that were being held in Los Angeles. And so I was regularly racing against some really big names, There was Alex Stita, Eric Hayden. There was a few others I just can't recall right now. But we regularly raced, across there. So I was very familiar, with the Pacific Northwest and including Los Angeles. So when I did decide to make that move, Canada to the U.S., it was a natural to come down, back down to Los Angeles. So back then, I was still refereeing some hockey in Los Angeles and still racing, back in 84. Moved back again to Canada when I decided, well, my focus isn't going to be on pro cycling. It's going to be on pro hockey. And so that's when I moved from LA back in '84 to Canada. And then, like I said, I put down my roots in both Calgary and in Winnipeg and in just outside of Toronto, and just really trying to pursue that, that career in hockey. And so when I was done with hockey, and I alluded to moving down here in 2000, I never thought I'd go back into chocolate again. I really didn't. And so it was a fresh start. I knew the area. I started running tournaments, hockey tournaments, particularly roller hockey tournaments across the country. So I was going from Florida right back to, the Pacific Northwest. Did a lot of different tournaments every weekend. And then I was rollerblading, in Newport Beach. There was a young lady in front of me rollerblading, and I had my pasta salad and I'm eating it, not looking at anything in particular until I saw her. And I rolled up to her and introduced myself. And when she said she was from Minnesota, I said to her, "Oh, that's got to be that's part of Canada. She's got to be at least a good person, And at that point, I didn't want to. I just wanted to grow myself, rather than go into a relationship after getting out of one, Very kind lady. Yeah. I had her, by the way, Michael, she's giggling in the background right now. She is here, so she's hearing this story again.
I love it. I love it.
You don't know what to make for dinner again? You want to explore new cuisines, but you don't have time? What if you have new inspirations and we provide you with the ingredients and recipes? We know you want to travel, learn new foods, explore the world, but life's responsibilities keep getting in your way. What if you can bring those experiences to your home neatly packed into a box? Ladyboo Collective is a subscription service that finds real people from around the world to create beautifully curated assortments of recipes, ingredients, and cultural content. Not only do we include cultural ingredients, but also a set of detailed recipe cards with instructions on how to use them. Each box also has a QR code that when scanned takes you to tons more global exploration to immerse yourself in. Everything from film to lifestyle, art to history, it all can be found here. Live your life to the fullest. Subscribe now and don't miss out on the next cultural adventure. Ladyboo Collective. Always exploring.
We hit it off right away, really, he was kind of quiet in a way, but then also I could tell that he was a very exciting person and a very, just very fun, and I had that energy of wanting to be out rollerblading. I did regularly worked out. We ran together. We did a lot of different things together. And it was never a dull moment with Jeff. And until this day, there's never a dull moment with Jeff. I mean, and with the kids, our kids are great humans too. And they're just fun to just go along the journey of life. It is challenging. We're going through right now some really which is moving is a lot of work, it's a lot of things to put together.
I recall I did take down her email address. So I had that email address in my pocket, and I didn't email her till, a few months later. Oh, okay. So my wife, her name's Naomi. So she's the love of my life, and we've been married now 18 years now. So
oh my gosh,
yeah,
that's fantastic.
And the funny story is, after we, our first date was me cleaning her rollerblades, and getting that done. And we discovered we lived very close to each other in Huntington Beach because, as I said, I put roots down in Southern California prior, and I knew a lot of people in hockey. And so I stayed with a family in Huntington Beach. and soon discovered we were like, 3-4 blocks away from each other. Her staying with a roommate, and I was with a family. So it was pretty funny. But we ended up, dating, and I told her what I used to do. I said, oh, yeah, I used to be in professional hockey. And as soon as I mentioned and I made chocolate, that was a game changer because she just said, oh, chocolate? And that kind of got me going in a way that I thought, oh, maybe I'll consider going back to it. I don't know, and so that's how Marsatta kind of came to fruition. We ended up moving in together to see how that was like. And, everyone, I recall little Sophie, we had a dog, and, when you're dating and you get a pet, it seems the next thing is either marriage or children, right? So everything seemed to work out and was jiving well. And Naomi just gave me a bar here, and I'm just thinking back to those days. But I ended up, like any entrepreneur, working out of our house first with chocolate, and then renting space off others. And my two products were back then being a chocolatier, were a Belgian chocolate bar. It was a caramel macadamia bar. So the dark bar has, and we still have the packaging and do sell it to this day, because my first order was, I don't know, like 20,000 boxes or something. So I just figured, I'm going to keep selling it because it's a great product, And so the image is the old Santa Monica Pier on the front of the bar for the dark bar. And the milk bar is an image of the Manhattan Beach Pier, which I will, is very dear to my heart, because it's an actual image of when we got married. And, it's an image that has, and only someone like myself would know who's in the image, of course, right? It's got a picture of my father in there. It's got a nice U.S. and Canadian flag hanging out there. It's got surfers on there, typical California vibe. But the images that are in there of a lot of our wedding party,
Okay.
which is really cool. So it's superimposed on this milk chocolate bar. So we've got it forever. My father's passed now, but it brings back some beautiful memories. Yeah, those two boxes or products, the dark bar and the milk bar, were my very first two products. So I wasn't necessarily scaling up, but I certainly were getting, a lot of orders, and really it was just, B2B. So I was, still refereeing some adult hockey at night. And I recall, finishing, getting off the ice at midnight or 12:30, and then going right to the rented space and creating these bars, wrapping them, bringing them home, and then going out the next morning and finding clients, finding businesses that we could sell these bars at. That was a lot of fun. And then in that same space, just across the lane, a spot opened up. And so I got thinking, maybe we could take over that spot. And we did. I put a lot of money into a commercial kitchen. Really fun times, because that was the advent of my adventure into bean to bar chocolate. So, I was always up on education and was going to different schools, including a school in Canada, in Montreal. And I posed a question to a prominent chef. To this day, I will not name him out of I just like it to be that way because I still don't understand why he discouraged me from making my own chocolate. So I posed a question, how come there's so many ingredients in chocolate, in some chocolates? And why can't I make my own chocolate? And I suppose being an official, a referee, you've got that somewhat control, and you want to, looking back, I wanted to make my own chocolate. And I posed that question to him, and he, in no uncertain terms, said, oh, no, you can't make your chocolate. You can't make chocolate. And I still recall the day because, a guy that owns the Newfoundland Chocolate Company was standing right next to me when I asked that question. And so the next flight out back to Los Angeles, I, don't say no to a human being, right? We run for the hills and we do the opposite, So back then, 2007, 2008, bean to bar chocolate was still really, something that was unheard of and hadn't been explored. But you had the brilliant mind of John Nancy, had a lot of information for a lot of us online, bean to bar chocolate. And he's just a human, he's just I think of him as a mad scientist, he just, he always shared his information, which was really, really cool, there was also the Chocolate Life, which was Clay Gordon's deal he had, and he is still running to this day. A lot of information as well. That was really cool for a lot of us because we, back then Google was, the forum to find answers, right? And so there wasn't anything really on chocolate making.
That's true.
Except people's experiences and, of course, John Nancy's and, Clay Gordon's stuff as well. So you took different scenarios and people, trial, tribulations, and you kind of formed it and morphed it into your own. So I recall back then we had, a Frankenstein, which is a hopper to separate the, the husk from the cacao bean. A lot of primitive material I look at now. I just shake my head because now we have state-of-the-art chocolate making machinery where back then.
Yeah, you have one that what do you call it?
Yeah, it's Big Mama.
Big Mama. Tell me about Big Mama.
Yeah, it holds close to 200 pounds of chocolate. It's probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest,
oh my gosh,
craft chocolate making machine in the United States. I mean, there's a lot of the smaller ones that hold, 60, 70 pounds, but this one certainly is a beast. Yeah, we haven't come close yet to filling it right to the top yet. I can't wait for that day. It's back then I look at, that old Frankenstein hopper, putting it into a busser's tray, shaking the tray, reversing a shop vac so it doesn't suck air, but it blows air, and tilting the bus tray so the shaft or shell floats to the top with a little bit of shaking. And then you, with the reverse shop vac, gently blowing at a certain angle, the husk off, and of course into the parking lot of our factory. And that's how we did it back then, And so,
oh my gosh,
quick sidebar to this story. I'm just imagining all this. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm closing my eyes, right? And your descriptions are amazing. And think about our audience around the world, right? Because that's where it reaches. We're in 21 countries now, and
I'm so thankful you are.
Dream come true to talk to you and to interview chefs and culinary artists.
And listen, so these husks, I'm thinking, wow, they're inside a pod, encased in a pod, so it's food safe, and the pod grows on the tree. So I'm thinking, God, it's got to be full of nutrients, and so I'm like, it would be a shame to just sweep it up and throw it in the garbage. So I got this idea to go to the local Home Depot at the time, and I bought myself a lemon tree. And it was just tiny, but it was my way of not wasting the cacao husk, right? The chaff. And so I would sweep it up and continue to put it in the lemon tree on top. Anyways, so I end up looking at that lemon tree one day, and I couldn't believe it. I was jumping up and down. There was little buds on the lemon tree. There was lemons actually growing on this tree. And I guess in retrospect, you look back and go, wow, yeah, dummy, it's a lemon tree, right? But I was so excited because it didn't have anything on it. And so all of a sudden, this lemon tree in a pot started sprouting, and it was growing 4 or 5 lemons, like healthy lemons. I'm like, oh my gosh. And I could clearly see, after months, that it needed a new pot, and so I must have changed that lemon tree pot. 3 times did I change? Maybe 3 or 4 times I changed, to the last time I really needed 2 people to lift this big clay pot. And I transferred all the soil and all the mulch, which now turned into just incredible, incredible soil. And I've never seen, Michael, so big of earthworms inside. I'm like, oh, wow. Where the heck did these come from? They were huge, but so healthy of soil. And it continued to grow. And I had so many lemons. It was amazing. But
that's so cool.
I point to the cacao, the chaff. That's what it was. It's just full of nutrients. Yes. So now today, we never waste our shell. We've been doing it for many years now. We make amazing cacao tea. So we have it in 3 flavors: a pure tea, a lemon robust, and a Hawaiian fruit blend. So we have 3 that we sell online, which is really cool. And it moves. It's great. It's a great seller for us. And the flavor is extraordinary. It really is. You're feeding me memory. I'm thinking these memories back then at our old manufacturing.
This is what it's all about.
We ended up getting a very large order. I started talking to Chef Daniel of Ciao Bella, which is up your way. In, I believe, Eugene, Oregon, and they have another plant in Pennsylvania, I believe it is. And they tasted our chocolate. They requested some of our mocha bits, I believe it was. And back then I was flavoring it with Indonesian Sumatra coffee, and it was just to die for. It was really cool stuff. And we continued with harvested a relationship, and we ended up, they ended up using our chocolate in one of their five or 6 flavors that were, being, to this day, they sell not our flavor. Our flavor ended up, that's another story, but it ended up being discontinued. But the other, sorbets, gelato sells at Whole Foods amongst other, stores across the U.S., but it was an amazing flavor. But what happened was I ended up having the experience to drive forklifts, right? So I shook my head one day. I couldn't believe that me, as a chocolate maker, is now driving this forklift with a pallet of Marsatta chocolate.
Oh, wow.
Going onto a semi, and I'm lifting it up, and I'm like, is this a dream or what? So
yeah, that's really cool. It's like gold. It's like you're lifting gold.
Yeah, our chocolate was being shipped to Eugene and to Pennsylvania at the time. So, gosh, it was fun times, and it all unfortunately came to a crashing halt. And what happened was, me being the hockey enthusiast I just have a passion for hockey, and
Mhm.
my kids all play hockey. My one girl is in Maine. She's a goalie, and
Oh, wow.
very good goalie, and in her high school and going to college next year.
So my wife had a question.
Oh yeah.
Since we're talking about hockey, she loves hockey, and I've seen it a few times. I love soccer.
Oh, we love soccer too. Yep.
But have you ever spent a lot of time in the penalty box? That's what she wanted to know.
It's really funny you say that, because maybe your wife feels my passion or something, because a lot of my players that I play for, we have a team called the Chocolates, Marsatta Chocolate.
Oh, love it.
And it's really cool going into the rink, and you see on the big monitor Marsatta Chocolate dressing room 7 or 6 or something. It's so surreal to see that, I'm just thankful that I have such great teammates, that, another story in itself, when we were the Chiefs and moving up to a higher division, we didn't have a name for the team. They said, why not the Marsatta Chocolates? I'm like, get out of here. No way. And it stuck. And so it's kind of neat, but getting back to your wife's question. I guess the passion sticks out, and I've served some time, but at the same time, I always say that, as a referee, we never lose, we always win. So we're always putting everyone in the sin bin,
Right. But it wouldn't be hockey without a penalty box. I mean, that's part of the passion behind it, I think. Yeah.
Players sin all the time on the ice, so they have to be punished for their sins, right?
You could have become a pastor instead of a chocolatier.
Yeah, I could have been. I was an altar boy at one time.
Oh my gosh. Okay. All right.
Yeah. But,
my dad too.
Oh, okay. Right on. Yeah, I think my brother was as well. We all had our time, I guess. And when and I guess the world evolves after a while, and I'm still close, but I'm not real close. I guess I could say I'm more closer to chocolate, but I still try and keep humans in my mind, and I try and serve, and I try and give as much as possible. And if I can help others, I want to be there to help.
I'm the same. I think it's really a great thing to have in your soul.
And I, by the way, I'll never forget. I mean, that's how we connected. I listened to your stories.
Oh man, that means a lot.
It really resonated, when you and your wife were married, and when you were in Europe, and those stories of remember the figs and that? So,
in Sardinia.
Yeah. Yep. So I remember those stories, and I thought of my wife when I blindfolded her and took her on a United flight to Paris. And back then I could I could blindfold her then, but nowadays would probably get thrown in jail or something. She never knew where she was going until I think someone said something, maybe a flight attendant or something said that, we're flying to Paris, and she's like, oh my God. And she still didn't know what was going on. It was during Easter holidays. And that's when I proposed to her on on one of those gondolas. Yeah. This was in Venice, Italy.
So you're a romantic and you're a chocolatier. That's pretty powerful. I think there's going to be a lot of people coming to your store.
Yeah, and I had a note. I had 2 notes, 1 or 3, I think. One in Italian, 1 in French, and 1 in English. And I gave them to the
gondola operator.
Yeah, the gondola. Okay. Yeah, and I told him to read them out to her, and she goes, honey, you got to ask me, not him. And he didn't know what he was getting into, and so awesome. These were in little Easter eggs, and they had little jelly beans inside, and and that was so cool. And so, and then I kind of let her know my plans, that I wasn't sure if I was going to ask her in Venice or if I was going to ask her on the Eiffel Tower. And then she says, well, you can ask me on the Eiffel Tower as well if you want. And so we did. We ended up traveling from Venice and going to the Eiffel Tower. And I'll never forget these American girls that were there over the Easter holidays from, an American school. And they caught on what was going on. And I was on one knee and they were like freaking out. These are young schoolgirls. And they're like, oh my God, this guy's asking her to marry him, Wow. And so it's really cool on top of the Eiffel Tower there. And so I still owe her a trip because we never got to have a honeymoon. We decided instead of, we got married here in the South Bay, in Redondo Beach here. Okay. And we had everyone come from, Minnesota and all over the US and Canada. And we wanted just to clearly, Naomi and I are people, we're people persons, right? We love conversation. We like talking. We love it. We love love. We love life, And so why would we want to leave the people that we invited? So we stayed and didn't go on a honeymoon, And so I still need to take her to Greece. I always said I would. And cool. 19, 20 years later, we still haven't gone yet. So we've got to get on that plan soon,
Well, it's funny because I always tell people when I got married and I met Carrie, I had to hang on because she is obsessed with travel. Obsessed. Like every year we travel around the world.
That's awesome.
But I love the experience for me because it's the culture and the food. It's the culture and the food. And those experiences are priceless. We went to Belize one time, right? If you can imagine this, okay? We're on this desert island, basically, in the middle of nowhere. And literally, we took a boat for a day to go bone fishing, which is for a fly fisherman, which is the epic experience of your lifetime.
Yes.
And we did it, and they took us to a coconut island that nobody was around, right? And there was a dog with them, and we had a really amazing barracuda coconut lunch with, it's just out of this world.
Wow.
It was so serene, and there's nobody. And you're fishing by yourself in this crystal clear water that is on what they call basically a key. So if you walked a quarter of a mile, you would be deep in the ocean. But because you're in this area, you're in like 2 feet of water. And you're just
like around. A lagoon.
Well, it's like a lagoon, but also they would take us on the boat and we would literally stop in the middle of the ocean and the guide would go, get out, jump out, right in the middle of the ocean.
What?
Well, it's only 2 feet.
Right.
And you're walking around, there's sharks swimming around you and there's pelicans diving. And this whole experience was so surreal. But this is all because my wife is obsessed with travel. Which isn't a bad thing. It's an amazing
No, it isn't. But Michael, you got to do it when you're young. People say that all the time because you know what? Yep. You're forging those memories.
Right.
Those memories you look back when you're having a so-so day and you think back and you both talk about it and you just smile and go, let's go. Let's go here. Let's go there.
And we still, we continue to do it. But with the pandemic, we put it on pause. And that's also part of why I started the podcast. Really
I understand. I mean, it's some trying times out there. And, I don't think you guys have children yet, right?
No.
So,
that's a whole nother story.
Yeah. We've got 5. So it kind of convolutes a lot of things. And you have to have a huge budget to take the whole family,
Right.
And so.
But you went to Paris. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. And of course, back then for us doing those things and those travels, it was just the two of us, and we still to this day love jumping in a car and going wherever, it's part of our family, our family trips. We still do it.
That's awesome. So let's talk a little bit about Marsatta as a whole. Can you kind of help us understand what it would be like if we come to visit you? What would your chocolate be like? What would the customer experience be like? In part 2, we take you behind the scenes with Chef Jeffray and Marsatta Chocolate. Thanks for joining us today. Follow us on Facebook. Find our website in the show notes. Subscribe on Spotify, iHeartRadio, or wherever you listen. Leave a comment with 5 stars and stay tuned for the next episode of Voice for Chefs.